These are upcoming concerts for Pink Floyd. Are they going to be the same as last year?
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, because we want to film them, and we want to record.
But I mean, when the album was released, I think Roger said that the whole concept was album, stage presentation, and filming. Well, why didn't you film it last year?
Because we thought we were going to rehearse it by doing the shows, and then film it in a studio. Because we thought that filming live would be impossible to get what we wanted. But since doing the shows and then researching filming in a studio, we realised that that's wrong and that it won't work, and that we've got to go back and record it live to get the atmosphere and to get the sort of sound and feeling that we want.
Could you tell me some more about the film?
Not a great deal, but a bit. Film will be made up really of three different elements. One being the live stuff, two being the animation, partly the animation that we've used in the show and partly some more animation, and partly some more stuff shot to illustrate more clearly the ideas contained in the story. But that's a bit vague still. That may depend slightly on how the film turns out, how much of the concept we want to use.
There are not going to be any new numbers used for the film?
Yes, I think there probably will.
Some
That's
new
the plan.
on the top of the wall.
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty of rumors regarding Floyd. The most often one is that you're splitting up. I mean, have you ever been on a brink of splitting up?
Oh yes, for the last 7 years.
Without joke or...
No, well, I mean, bands are only, they struggle along for as long as there's something worth doing. And you give up either because you all get so angry with each other and so sort of dissatisfied with what the band is doing and feel you could do better on your own, or you just sort of lose interest in working together and the band having an identity, which I think perhaps happened to the Beatles a bit. They just lost interest. I don't think we've lost interest yet, but I don't think that the only thing that holds the thing together is new projects turning up and new interests and so on. So the thing is only as long as those sort of things keep happening. I mean, I think there's other things that contribute to us not splitting up. I think as long as we've all got opportunities to do solo albums and solo projects and don't feel that we're constrained by being in a band, obviously that acts as, in a way, as a great it's a great asset to keeping the whole thing together, because obviously a successful band is a very useful tool to doing all sorts of things, particularly making records. And so there's a lot of advantages in staying together, but you actually need a reason, beyond that to stay together. You need some feeling that what you do as a band is better than what you do as individuals. And at the moment we've still got that. But we're always going through periods where, particularly when we finish touring and finished an album and no one can imagine what on earth we're going to do next. And everyone sort of sits around thinking, God, that was ghastly. Particularly after the last American, whatever was the last American tour, everyone climbs off the plane thinking, I'm retiring tomorrow, But then it all comes back together, and as soon as there's something to do, everyone gets re-enthused. But this is not our farewell tour.
No, that's not the reason I asked you the question. No. Do you socialize with the band outside the band?
A bit, yes. Roger's a good friend of mine. Less so with the others, but I mean, not because they're horrible, just because, particularly after a long time, I've seen an awful lot of it. I spent more time with that lot than I have with my family.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And they're jolly nice boys, but I mean, one's time to see some other people.
I have to ask you that question. I don't feel really pleasant asking you, but there is plenty of rumors that you're doing this tour for money, that you are skinned.
Yeah, jolly good.
True or false? I mean, that's
false. I mean,
Okay, you drop it. No, I simply had to.
Yes, I've seen people saying that, but it's well, I think if we were skinned, we'd make another record. Touring doesn't make us a lot of money, but the shows are too expensive to put on. I'll tell you what, if we were going to retour and if we were going to retire, and if we were skint, what you'd see us probably do is make another album and do a world tour. World tours seem to be the point at which bands are going to retire, because no one can do a world tour and come back with their head still in one piece, sort of thing. I mean, it definitely drives you crazy, so you obviously do it as a last resort. So that's my opinion of world tours anyway.
Tell me, how do the Floyd albums materialize? Does the Watchers come and bring you the score and says you're going to play this or that?
Well, in the case of The Wall, that's pretty much what happened. Except, of course, you know, even a very well set out thing changes enormously once you actually get in there and start recording it. But that was the most complete thing that's ever happened. Generally, things have been a lot vaguer and been sorted out a lot more in the studio.
So you really have to work on all the material, whatever is brought in.
I mean, it's inevitable. Even if the thing is absolutely, you know, produced as a absolutely complete thing, as soon as you actually get in the studios, there's always a million changes you're going to make, you know, and you're going to alter it, and either you want the timing to be different, or when you actually hear it down on tape as a finished thing, you realise that it's too long, or that one verse doesn't work, or the solo's too long, or too boring, or, you know, it just, even a completed thing is never complete.
The band has kept a low-profile image for as long as possible. Remember, when you played Never 75, I think Roger walked through the audience and nobody recognized him or something.
Very likely. Usually they don't recognise us.
I mean, why have you kept away from the audience?
Well, it's not a matter of keeping away from the audience, it's just a matter of not having lots of photographs taken.
Well,
which wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate
to come across your photo.
Yeah, but part of that is because I think it came about because of the stage shows, which, unlike most of the stage shows that were evolved over the last 12 or 15 years, well, since the beginning of rock and roll, ours were some of the early ones where there was a film going on at the same time, or coloured lights, or flashing lights, so people didn't see the individuals to the same extent. And consequently, it just grew from that. People knew the name of the band and liked the band, or didn't like the band for, you know, what we did rather than who we were or what we looked like, and it just went on from there. But we didn't bother much with publicity photographs because it seemed a bit irrelevant, you know, when the show wasn't about that. And it just, once it had started, it kept on like that. Then we fell out with the British press very badly, I think, and so the idea of having pictures taken for the papers seemed a waste of time. And there are enormous, you know, in fact, of course, life is generally much, much better for not being recognised. It makes it much easier to get on with everything else.
It's rather difficult, I mean, taking the wall presentation, and with all that wall in front of you. I mean, I remember last year we were sitting quite near. What can you think? I mean, know your face is something. I mean, I knew how you looked like.
Right, well, that's, I mean, one of the nice, you know, the use of the surrogate band and so on is all possible because people don't know us well enough, you know, and that those sort of devices would not be available to us if we were the Rolling Stones.
Well, I'll take your word. You played Ascot a couple of times. A lot of people complain that it's a very awful place, but that you can get a good sound.
Well, I think we got a good sound at Ascot.
Yes. So, I mean, it seems that there is a problem with other people.
Yes. There is a problem with other people, I think.
No, but I remember in Never 75, you had a problem with the sound.
Yes, we did, but that was, we could have got it right, we made mistakes, sort of thing. It's always that thing of, most things are possible if you do it correctly, and Nebworth, we thought we got it right, we used our own PA and so on, and it still didn't come out right. But Earls Court, definitely, partly because we've done it before, and partly because we designed a new PA system for it, which was fine.
You're very strict about the quality of your official recordings, but you, together with Dylan and maybe Bruce Springsteen, you're the subject of the numbers of the bootlegs. And it seems that you really, somehow that you don't mind it.
Oh, we do.
You even help it. Because you always play, I mean, in the past, you used to play numbers before you record them, actually. And obviously, fans
Yes.
are eager to get new material.
The problem is that one of the best ways of rehearsing for an album was to perform live. We used to be very disappointed when we recorded first and then performed live, that after 3 concerts we'd say, why didn't we record it like that? We've changed this, we've changed that, we've made it better. And it would make better records to perform live first. Now, the thing with bootlegging is at the end of the day, all one can say is that one has to do whatever will make the best records, and people shouldn't buy bootlegs. And if the bootlegs were always say bad, and the songs were going to come out on record later, but the only it's a rip-off. I mean, the bootleggers make rotten records, and if people buy rotten records, really it's their own fault. I wish they wouldn't. But if you bought a bootleg and then 2 months later the record comes out, what can I say?
But it's a souvenir, you know.
Well, if
You were
people,
there, you were there.
yes, well, if people want those sort of souvenirs, I suppose you can't stop them buying them, but I'd rather they bought a T-shirt.
Another Brick in the Wall, part 2, was your first single for 11 years. I'm talking about this country.
Yes.
What happened that you decided to put a single out?
Because it seemed like a perfect single. You know, it was a definite single. In a way, it was the only mistake about it is the fact that the ideas contained in the single were slightly misinterpreted without the album to show what it was part of. But as a single, in terms of music and the way the idea was compressed into 2.5 minutes and so on, fine, terrific. That's what I mean. You know, it's definitely a single, and musically it's a single.
There was a lot of fuss about that single.
Yes, but only because people never listen to it. People like making a fuss. You know, that, and particularly when a rock and roll is involved with, you know, the potential for long hair and drugs and loose women and so on. But I mean, only because they didn't listen. You know.
Your albums, Pink Floyd albums are about 2 rare, every 2 or 3 years. Tours as well. What are you doing in meanwhile? Well, what are you
making the damn things?
Oh, well, you don't take
the Wall.
years.
Yes, the Wall took over. The Wall took forever to make. Roger spent 6 or 7 months working on the original things. Then we did a whole demo of the thing and sort of roughed it, and then we went and made the proper recording. And we were recording it from April through to December.
It's April 1980.
April 79 through to 1980, and then working on the shows. It's ridiculous, but I mean, we spend an awful lot of time working on these things.
So besides that, what are your hobbies?
Motor racing.
Motor racing.
Motor racing.
You have seen a picture in a 1950s car dancer.
Sounds very like it. Yeah.
Rick Sanders says that your hobby, well, when the book was written, Pink Floyd, was sailing.
Yes, that's quite true. Just shows you how to date these things up.
Well, it was written before 1976 or something.
Yeah. No, I used to do quite a lot of dinghy sailing. I still like it.
Huh?
I still like it, but I don't do very much of it.
Back in the 60s, the disc, that famous teeny magazine, described you as very shy, introverted, and short-tempered.
I'm less shy than I used to be. I don't think I'm really an introvert, and I don't think I've ever been short-tempered. I don't think you should rely on teeny magazines for that sort of information. For deep personality descriptions, I'd steer clear of that sort of thing. No. I don't think I'm short-tempered, but I might be. Try me. See if you can make me lose my temper very quickly.
Well, I wouldn't like to. You look bigger than I am. At the time, you liked Ginger Baker. Who do you respect now? Drummer-wise.
I still like Ginger Baker. I mean, I think he was a great influence.
Yeah, but he hasn't done.
No, but who do I like now? No, quite a lot of jazz drummers, so Tony Williams, people like that. Of course, Moogel, Billy Cobham, Michael Winton, all the sort of Mahavishnu orchestra type of drums. Can't even remember his name. The guy who police drummer.
Oh, Steve Cobb.
Yeah, very good.
Steve Cobb.
Yeah, very good. Who else? I don't know. I'm trying to think who's around at the moment or what's being played. I'm trying to think of people who, really have done something interesting and exciting recently, and I think there's been a lot of developments recently in recorded drum sound. There's people who've really listened to drums again and gone into studios and really tried to make their kits sound different. I think those are. I can't really think of many names or anyone that I particularly think of recently.
Going back all these years, when the Pink Floyd started, I found out that your ambition was to do a screenplays. Film screenplays. You don't know anything about it?
No.
Rick Sanders says in his book.
Well, Rick Sanders can't be trusted either, obviously. No, I think when we were quite interested in doing film scores, because it was I'm interested in film music very much because I think it's an interesting discipline. You're given very tight timing and you're given very specific ideas, and it's very interesting to have to work to those ideas and produce something that fits exactly, or more than fits, actually helps.
Well, Floyd had a couple of attempts, haven't you?
Yeah.
With Schroeder.
Yes, Bobby Schroeder. Yeah.
Right, for more in La Vallée.
Yeah.
But that was the first one was done in about a week, and the second one in about 3 weeks or so.
Yeah. Those were great, but then we had what we thought was going to be an enormous success with Zabriskie Point, and it got absolutely impossible. Antonioni was very hard to work with. I mean, he has a very curious method of working where he retains control, and in order to retain control, he'd make us sort of jump through hoops. And that was so wearing, I think we rather lost interest in films after that, particularly when he didn't use any of it, or only used a tiny bit.
Well, he used some.
Used some, but only a bit.
And how did it happen that you made Live at Pompeii?
Someone suggested, it just seemed a very good idea at the time. And it's an old film now. I'm glad we made it. I think it's got some good things about it, and some real rubbish. I mean, I think the idea of shooting it outdoors was a very good one, because it has a live feel to it, even though there's no audience, which is created by all that dust and wind and so on. But I think the studio stuff, with Kath with that axe, and is awful. I think musically it's very dull, very lifeless.
The last time I saw it, I loved it.
Well, I can't watch it because I find just watching myself looking back at me across the screen so ghastly. Actually, that's not quite true. I looked at it recently. Someone sent me a video of it recently, and I watched it with absolute fascination, seeing this long-haired rock musician wandering about with a moustache and a cowboy hat on, and realising it was me. I pointed it out to my children with great interest.
And what was the reaction?
They didn't know who it was, and it was almost peculiar.
Yeah. How old are you, kid? The big
10 and 6.
I couldn't remember it.
No, well, I suppose. When was it made? 73?
Yeah, it was released in...
Oh, we were working on Dark Side of the Moon. It must have been made in 71 or something like that. Very difficult being in a rock and roll band for this long, because the history gets longer and longer, more and more complicated. And I can't remember what albums were made when, or... ghastly.
How do you remember all that, after all this time, all that excitement back in 66, Roundhouse, UFO, Club, Club, new gigs at the Hyde Park, Games for May, and how do you look at it now? A bit of nostalgia?
Yes, nostalgia. I mean, it was very exciting. You definitely knew that it was all happening, and the band was those were the sort of key moments when you realised that the band actually had potential, because particularly in those early days, for every time we played UFO or did a concert in Hyde Park or something, we were doing 12 dates around the rest of England, playing the California Ball in Dunstable or the Top Rank Cardiff or something, where they just hated it. You know, we'd be on this revolving stage, and we'd come round and start, and for a bit, they'd listen for 10 minutes, they'd listen, and then they'd really start getting it ill-tempered. Booing and generally being a real drag.
How did you involve that you left? You started as a rhythm and blues band, more or less.
More or less, just a sort of rock, yes, more or less.
And how did involve that you started experimenting with the sound?
Because we were so bad at rhythm and blues that we just desperately needed to do something else. We just, I don't know,
I mean, there are theories that Peter Jennings suggested, so... Yeah, I know that is not true, but that's one of the theories.
Oh no, I think probably Sid Barrett was really the, you know, Sid who sort of... I think it was a sort of combination of things where we were probably, you know, we were doing straightforward standard rock and roll numbers, and partly through the involvement with the light and sound thing, working with film and working with the Hornsey Light and Sound shop, where they needed extended pieces, the solos would get extended. And from then on it was a case of sort of looking for new ideas in the solos, particularly, and just looking in different areas to the normal areas of playing longer and louder, of actually trying to play quieter and different sort of guitar techniques, and using, you know, bottle steel sounds, but in a different way.
Have you been concerned when Sid Barrett left the band? Have you been concerned about the future when Sid Barrett left the band?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we thought it was, well, we realised when he left that it was all going to be rather difficult. And, you know, there was a lot of critical sort of, I suppose for the next year, it was very dubious about whether people would accept the band at all without Sid in it. But then it began to come together, and partly because Sid had been the main songwriter, and suddenly it was left to the rest of us to sort out who, you know, writing for the band.
But for a long time it seemed that his shadow hovered over the band.
Well, I think it still does to a small part. You know, some people still remember the name, and but I was saying to someone earlier, I think to some extent he's used as a goad, that people know that if you can keep waving some old ghost, it's another way of, you know, of upsetting us. And I think particularly in England, people like to do that a little bit. To make, it's a bit like sort of, you know, it's the ancient Romans sending the slave in the chariot along with the conquering hero to say, remember thou art not a god. I mean, it's sort of remember Sid Barrett, you know, you've never done as well as you could have done if you'd stayed with Sid.
What is the state of affair of Pink Floyd? I mean, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, nor do we. I mean, we haven't, I would say that we definitely have not agreed that it's all over and finished. That we feel that it still exists and it's sitting there waiting to be revitalised if we want to. Now, I think things have changed a little bit because David and myself both feel now that we would like to revitalise it. I mean, about 2 years ago, no one was very interested in it. They had other things to do. I think David and myself now would like to get going again.
Why is that?
Why?
What's sort of next year?
Well, I think David and myself probably, we've done a bit more solo work in the past, and I think we see that as something that teaches us quite a lot, and it's a sort of development that we could then put back into the band. I think Roger saw his last solo album as a sort of alternative to Pink Floyd. I mean, I'm not, you know, you'd have to ask him really to get full what he really thinks, but I think now Dave and myself both still would like to go back. It's partly because we've both done, outside the band, very different things to the band, so the band still represents an alternative, sort of, you know, something different to do. I think Roger might either, he might change his mind if he felt that the rest of us were sort of feeling strong enough, wanting to do something and had some suggestions. I think he would feel, specifically, hates the idea of having to go back and do it all and us then join in.
But yeah, what about Rick Wright? I mean, is he completely out?
Well, in theory, he did leave, but...
yes, that's what I'm asking.
But having said that, I would think that he would come back if he was asked.
No, I mean, on the outside looking, the Pink Floyd, it seems that you are too serious about your own projects, you know. It's more, it seems unlikely that you would get together, you know what I mean?
What, that we're too serious about our outside projects?
That's right, yeah.
I think we have been, but I think there's still a sort of there's an interest in what's possible as a band, because you know a sort of well-established band does have the potential to do things that are impossible as individuals. You know, Dave. I mean, I think Dave doing solo things, he's really enjoyed it, and he likes the atmosphere of playing music just as music without the big show and so on. But I think, in spite of that, there's still an interest and a delight in doing the other sort of performance, the other sort of show. So I don't think, I think it's one of those things where perhaps the interest died away, but can be revitalised.
What, interest in Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
I think you are very wrong in that. I don't think that interest has ever died. Not
have
really.
you got any ideas already for future possible Pink Floyd?
No, because I think it would, before anything else, the first thing to do would be to make a record. And it would depend very much upon the nature of the record, whether, there's always that possibility of revitalising the old show, or one of the old shows. But I think we'd probably rather look to see if we had some new music and some different ideas.
What about, how did you react when your boss, when there was a, what was it called, Hitchhiker Show in Earl Scott? How did you react towards it? I mean, have you been there, or?
Yes, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, it was that thing of, I didn't like particularly to hear our music played by other people.
That's what I wanted to know, you know,
was,
because it's sort of your child, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the show, fine. But I still think it was, I'd rather we'd have done it than, I've not necessarily done that particular show.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
Did he ask you about it?
Well, we talked about recording that piece as a Pink Floyd track, but really it was very much Roger's solo thing.
No, what I mean, did he ask you about, did he tell you that he would like to play old Pink Floyd material?
Oh yes, because we agreed that he could use the old film. We had some old film and so on. And, I don't think I'd have ever felt it was right to say to him, no, he can't do it, because a lot of it were things that he wrote. And I think we're all entitled to play our old material if we want to with other people. You could never say you can't do it, but no, I didn't like it. I might even have liked the music, but it made me feel bad to watch it.
That was an interesting compliment, that Hitchhiker thing. He wanted it to be Pink Floyd.
Well, I think so, to sort of say...
Well, half of the show was old Pink Floyd, wasn't it?
But I mean, his own solo, the material.
Yes, to make it another Pink Floyd record.
Nothing came out of the band.
Why?
Wasn't it made by
No, because I think, it sounds silly, because The Wall, I have to try and explain. I think The Wall was, was Roger's writing, Roger's idea, and so on. But everyone was sympathetic to it. They liked the idea, and we heard the demos, and all liked it, and wanted to work on it, and do what we could. With The Hitchhiker, it was much more something that we heard and felt was very personal, more personal to him, that we were perhaps less sympathetic to, and that he should do on his own. So there was a sort of, I don't want it to sound as though we said we didn't want to do it and didn't like it, because it wasn't quite like that. It was much more a thing of agreeing that that was his personal view, whereas The Wall was a personal view, but one that we were sympathetic with.
You did a second show at Earl Scott, in The Wall.
Yeah.
To be included in the film.
That's right.
Which never made the film.
That's right.
So, have you seen the film afterwards? Have you seen the finished copy?
Some of it. Well, the reason why we didn't use it was, well, there were two reasons really. One, I think the film we got wasn't that brilliant. Not that. But the main thing was that once we started to use Alan Parker, the idea of the film changed slightly, and there was no place for it in the film anymore. And I think that was the right decision. I think the film became a story and became a proper piece of, I was going to say fiction, but it became more believable because it was total fiction. Whereas if there'd been a sudden bit of documentary of us in it, it would have all been fragmented and not made sense anymore. And
someone put it very well. I think Alan said the thing is that if you'd had it in there, it was almost like having a narrator, as you do at the beginning of a play or something, explaining the whole thing to people, which was unnecessary. It was a sort of unnecessary thing to sort of say, and I think that was right.
So you cannot give me any reaction about the film if you haven't seen the whole lot.
The whole lot of what, of the live stuff?
No, the wall.
Oh no, I've
film.
seen the film.
Oh, you've seen?
Oh yeah, hundreds of times.
No, I'm talking about the film, the Alan Parker's film, the finished film.
Of the woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and how did you view it?
I liked it. I thought it was. I think he did a very good job.
No,
I mean, we were
because you were
quite
nearer
involved.
to the original idea than anybody else. I mean, most probably him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he made another, or helped create another version of the story. And I think it works very well. I think it's quite a tough film, and I think that's good for a rock film. I think most rock things are rather ephemeral, and that at least has some lasting quality in it, because it's fairly tough. A lot of it's depressing and violent and everything else, but it's...
Life is not all roses.
Exactly, yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit about the cars? I'm really, it is Richmond's toys, aren't they? I mean, you really have to have a good backing to be able to drive cars like you have miniatures around.
Yes. Through music, I've been able to realise wildest dreams. Really, I'd accept that. And also through music, I've been able to some extent. I mean, it's one of those very unfair things, but wonderful for me, which is that people are more interested in some crazed rock and roll drummer driving than in someone else. So that if you're looking for a sponsor or to suggest to someone that you should drive their car, they know they'll perhaps get a bit more press if you're in the car than perhaps someone who's a slightly better driver. So for something like Le Mans, where it's a very expensive race, I mean, it's certainly the most expensive sports car race, you're in a slightly stronger position to go out and look for a drive or get involved in a team or whatever. So it has double benefits at times.
You've raced 5 times at Le Mans.
Yeah.
Why not more? I mean, not this year.
Not this year, because I only want to race there if I think that the car is right and the team are right, and that I would fit into it, that my position in it would be useful. I mean, having said that thing about I might be of some use as from a press aspect, I don't want to be there as the idiot, who then is so much slower than the other drivers or whatever, or that they don't really want in the car. I mean, I only want to do it if it all works out. And there just wasn't a drive this year. I would have liked. I was a bit spoilt last year because I had a drive in the 956 Porsche, and that is so good. The thought of getting into something that felt less good. I didn't want to do it. Really.
Do I detect sort of a doubt when you talk about yourself as a driver?
Oh yeah.
Do you doubt your ability?
Oh yes, but I think I doubt my ability in most things. I mean, it's that feeling that it's the same with music, really. I was a drummer that you think, well, I'm not really that good, but I've been lucky because I've been in Pink Floyd. And so that's what's very good for one. To work with other people, because it teaches you that actually they suffer from the same doubts and so on. And I think most people do, and that's why it's so important to get out, because if you don't, you'll just never get out again. You'll just always be stuck, unable to play with other people, which is one of the great satisfactions of music.
I understand that is a doubt is the only way that you can progress, that you can better yourself in whatever you do. If you don't doubt, if you think, I'm God's gift to mankind or something, you finish. You end up like knocked out in the wall. No, really, I mean, I'm really intrigued, but I don't know much about the cars, especially the racing cars. Have you ever been near Formula One, for example, or something like that?
Not really. That is too different. I mean, that's very specialised. You need to be totally dedicated. it's sort of a bit like talking about professional tennis, you know, that you can be a good amateur tennis player, but then you can't just say, if someone said, you're really good at amateur tennis, why aren't you playing at Wimbledon against McEnroe? You'd say, well, because it's more difficult, you know, it's another level. But it's interesting, I have to say, you're the only journalist who's actually picked up on that thing about doubt and, you know, whether people do feel uneasy about things they do.
Well, I presume we do all. Maybe some people don't, you know, confess, but I'm the first one. I mean, you know, it's the only way to do it.
No, I think that's right.
Right, so well, I didn't know until, I don't know, yesterday, the day before yesterday, when I was reading through your blog, that you had a shop for Austin Martins?
Yeah, that's right.
Those vintage ones?
Yes, and only vintage ones. Just very specialised. It was a good way of doing it, I think.
But you don't do anything in that, do you?
Not anymore. I mean, I'm still the sort of overall director of it, but I used to actually work on the cars occasionally myself for fun, but I think there's one thing is time, obviously, that there's never time. But the second thing is, I like working on cars, but I'm not a professional. And one of the things with that garage is it now has a very good reputation, I think. It's sort of generally agreed over that we do very good work. And I think if you charge people a lot of money to do good work, you can't have someone who just is doing some spannering for fun. You've got to be absolutely certain that all the work you did was done by a professional, and you can say, we did it properly and you must pay us for it, sort of thing, rather than saying, well, actually, I did that myself. I'm sorry it fell off.
Have you got a big collection of cars?
Quite big, about 20 plus.
Well, so what do you do with them? Do you have a little museum or something?
Well, some of them are next door. Go and have a look at them if you like. Some of them. I raced nearly all of them. I mean, I have raced at one time or another nearly all of them. The other thing we're doing with them is trying to get them to earn their living by renting them out for films or photography or for advertisements or for displays or anything like that. And that's really what we're going to start with. This office is primarily used for.
See, that's very interesting. I mean, God, you've got so many other interests. My opening statement of, you know, music being a sideline, it seems to be more to the point. No, I didn't mean like that, you know.
Yeah. No, it was a good opener, but I'd always deny it.
But you always, you know, you really have so many other interests that Pink Floyd hardly can fit in.
Well, I would, if Pink Floyd was busy, I would make sure the other interests could manage themselves. I mean, something like the cars can manage themselves, or someone else can manage them. The recording studio definitely can manage itself, and I hope when we're putting a new solid-state Logic desk in that it'll be very busy with other people. I don't really want to be able to use it at all. I'd rather it was absolutely full most of the time. I've never wished to have the studio, you know, at home, so I've always been particularly interested, particularly as I live
like an office.
Yeah. In that.
You used to live near to Roger Waters, didn't you?
I used to, but he's now moved out of town.
I say so. You're the only one in London.
I am left.
Can you go back and can you remember any anecdotes about Pink Floyd? What happened? Anything interesting?
Well, I mean, it was all interesting. You have to tell me more specifically what sort of area. I can't think of anecdotes. Is always
anything happened on a tour, or, you know, something in a studio. You know, funny stuff.
There's anything I don't know about.
I remember the last time I talked to you after the fictitious spot. We were talking about the early days of Pink Floyd and how you started playing the music you became renowned for. And your explanation was that you didn't know how to play proper rhythm and blues. And the visuals became, because, you know, the music, it was incorporated with the music and so on, you know. Things like that. I really don't know anything in more detail. Or things like Roger Waters, when he played Naples, when was it? 76 or whatever. So and he walked through the auditorium, nobody saw him, nobody recognized him, stuff like that.
Yes, well, I mean, those sort of things happen all the time. I mean, I think the sort of most extraordinary things were the big equipment things, like the business of the pig, that escaped from...
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Which is my biggest memory of the sort of things that happened. And all those inflatables that... we built a pyramid that also inflated, which we had in America.
I didn't know about that.
We just did it for America. It was an enormous 60-foot square pyramid. And we cut that loose one night, and it just went... and it got about 500 foot into the air, and then it's a very bad flying shape. If you're ever thinking of building an aeroplane like a pyramid, forget it. And it just inverted, and the centre of it popped out. The Americans thought that was fantastic. I can remember now one of them saying, "My God, it's giving birth." As the sort of centrepiece came popping out and went up. And of course, this enormous mass of canvas then came down. But fortunately, no one was underneath it, because it would have taken ages to get them out of it. I mean,
has anything happened to you personally whilst you were touring?
in terms of what?
I don't know, something unusual,
Well, lots of unusual things, I suppose. Tours are made up that there isn't, one looks back over 15 years or 16 years of touring, and there's nothing that springs up as that was really extraordinary, because each tour is made up of a whole mass of little stories. There are some nights that are really quite dull, and other nights where the road crew go on rampage and the hotel's in uproar, and there's trouble, and things where you're bored, and so on tour, particularly the American tours, where you're looking. The nice memories quite often are things that aren't very unusual or dramatic. They're just the way you spent a couple of days while you were there together, and you all went tubing down the river, or played tennis for 3 days or something like that, rather than thinking, God, I remember that incredible thing. Those sort of events tend to be more to do with the strange people that you meet on tour, particularly, and the very strange thing is that you can have as much security as you like all around the place, and the only people who will ever get through backstage are the real lunatics. If it's your mother or your girlfriend or whatever, they can never get backstage. But if it's some real spacey person who wants to say, I've heard the music in the Spurs, and I just know that you're God, or something like that, they always just breeze straight past the security guards. I don't know what happens, but they're always there, knocking on the band room door.
They must have more imagination.
Yes, perhaps they hypnotise them.
Does it happen to you when after all these years, that you sit at home and read or something, and you get those mental pictures of a band in a particular situation or something? Do you get those little flashbacks?
Not just sort of sitting. I suppose something would trigger it, particularly if you're watching a band on television or talking to someone. Particularly talking because someone mentions a city or something like that. That's why it's so difficult when you say, tell me the story. I can't think of anything. If you said to me, do you remember
New York so-and-so?
Yeah, and I'd say, oh yes, that was the time when the pig escaped, something else happened, or the lunatic jumped from the stalls onto the stage, or something like that, So the memory works in a peculiar way.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm asking. So you do get them, those memories, flashbacks.
Oh yes.
Out of the blue.
And I think one of the curious things is sometimes when the band are talking about what happened in the past, how we remember things in very different ways, and so we'll argue for hours about whether, do you remember that guy at the time Dave rode the motorbike through the restaurant? And we'll go, yes, Denver, 1972. And someone else will go, don't be stupid, it wasn't Denver, it was Cleveland or something. And we have these, and we're absolutely convinced of the memory we have. But
I must do coming again with Roger.
With Roger? Not a lot, but I'll speak to him. We meet fairly regularly anyway, just to talk about the business and what we're doing and past catalogue and all the rest of it. And I see Roger socially a bit. I mean, not an enormous part, but we'll go out to dinner or meet at things. And I mean, I think I still look upon Roger as one of my best friends. I mean, he's been a friend for a long time. I mean, a very serious friend, because when we have an argument, you know, we really have the ones where you really hate someone and don't want to speak to them for a year. But I still look upon him as someone. He certainly, probably, we know more about each other than almost anyone else that close friends, just because we've been around together for so long. You know, it's a friendship that goes back over 20 years now, sort of before the band. That's what's sort of curious about it.
Is it 20 years?
Well, 20 years, because I knew Roger 3 years before the band was working.
I mean, does it feel like that?
Yeah,
like
it
20
feels
years?
like 5.